All right, welcome to the Paradox of Sports. This is the Valentine's Day edition for us here, and we are going to jump back into the world of professional wrestling. And we got an exciting couple joining us uh, from Ring of Honor Wrestling. You know them, Mike Bennett, Maria Kanellis. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Paradox of Sports.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here.
All right, dude, take it away.
What got you two into wrestling?
Two totally different things. So, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I was a fan. I grew up watching it, but I was actually I didn't watch it when I was super little. I became a fan when I was actually like 12 or 13 during the Attitude Era, and I just became obsessed with it, like borderline like bad habit obsessed. I loved it so much, and then my dad, one fateful night, took me to go see Monday Night Raw at the Worcester Centrum Center in Massachusetts. And I saw Mick Foley win the world title for the first time. And I was hooked at that moment. I told my dad, I was like, I'm going to be a pro wrestler. And he was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And that was it. I never looked back after that. At 13 years old, I knew exactly what I was going to be.
So right quick, I'm going to interrupt because I got to ask you a question here. What took you so long to get hooked into it? Because I remember watching it as little as, 5 or 6 years old. So
like when I was real little, I watched it a little bit, but I didn't become a fanatic about it until I was like 12. When I was like 5, there were times when I was a little Hulkamaniac running around, but I wasn't nearly as. And then I kind of fell out of it. From like 5 until 13, 12 or 13, I just didn't watch it at all. And then my buddies were watching it at that age and they were talking about it at school. And so I was like, I got to check this out. I haven't watched wrestling in forever, thinking about the days of Hulk Hogan. And then when I turned it on, it wasn't like that at all. And I loved it. So there were times when I was real little, I did watch it, but not to the extent I did when I was 12 or 13.
Gotcha.
For me, I watched it when I was a kid. I broke my brother's nose doing wrestling moves on him when we were real small. And then I got out of it for a little bit. And then a guy I was dating was a big fan of professional wrestling. And the guy I was dating didn't last, but the love of professional wrestling did. So I was watching one time with him and they were having the diva search and I entered online and they brought me in to do the competition.
How did you two meet?
We met at a wrestling show. We worked for a company. It was an independent wrestling company. This was after my first run with WWE, and it was called Northeast Wrestling. And we met there, and I was there just doing a signing. And then they threw me in to manage. Was I managing Matt that day?
I think you were.
Yeah, I was managing his Ring of Honor tag team partner. They weren't tag team partners yet, Matt Taven. And I ended up doing the show that evening. He was on the show. He was wearing a Ring of Honor hat. And so my very sly way of getting to know him at first was to ask him if he worked for Ring of Honor. And then a couple months later, we started dating. Our first date, he was 5 hours late to pick me up.
Not a good idea.
But it worked out. It did.
So you're the one that made the first move then. You approached Mike then.
I did.
Well, I was oblivious. I didn't even think, like, I thought I didn't have a chance. So what am I going to do? She actually approached me while I was shoveling my face with pizza. So I was in my element.
Beautiful.
Mike, you started your career on the independent circuit. Talk about your first time in wrestling.
So actually, believe it or not, my very first match, I got completely knocked out cold. And so I don't actually remember my first match. I remember like little bits and pieces here and there. And then from what people told me, but I think I was 16 when I had my very first match. And this was after convincing my parents that they should let me be a wrestler at 16 years old. And it just happened that the guy picked me up wrong for a power bomb and dropped me down, and I just, boom, lights out. And my dad was convinced from that point on that I'd never wrestle again. And he just kept telling me, and I was like, no, I'll keep wrestling. And luckily I stuck with it, but that first match wasn't my best one. I don't know if it was good or not, because I don't remember it. But from that point on, I just kept doing the indies in New England, and then kept traveling the country to keep doing indies until Ring of Honor finally gave me a contract. But some of my best memories are on the independents when I think back to what I did. And that's why I'm so excited about right now, because I can go, hopefully once the craziness of the world opens up and we can finally be humans again, hopefully I can start hitting the independent scene again, because it's I love it. I love going to the small towns. I love interacting with the fans at that level. Like, you get a real personal level with the fans when you can do independence that you don't get in a giant arena. But if there's 200 people there, you have the opportunity to interact with all 200 people and make 200 new fans that you probably don't in front of 10 or 20,000 people. So the independence will always be my home.
Maria, you started as a Diva Search contestant. Talk about your start in WWE as a backstage interviewer and then transitioning into a wrestler.
So when I first started, I don't know if you know who Jonathan Coachman was.
Yes,
but
I know who
he
he
was
is.
doing all those interviews with The Rock. And so I was obsessed with backstage interviewing. So when I was in the Divas competition, Jonathan Coachman was one of the judges. And so I get up to go in front of the judges during the Diva Search. And this is before we were down to the top 25 even. This was just in Chicago. And in Chicago, I think there was about 600 girls there at the Chicago finals. And so I go up for my interview in front of the judges, and Jonathan Coachman asked me a question, and I don't even remember what the question was, but I called him a popcorn fart because I didn't like how he was phrasing the question, because I knew The Rock had called him a popcorn fart. I think I must have said to him, like, aren't you the popcorn fart? And they just sent me on to the next round. So I always loved the interaction. I didn't care. I just said what I wanted, I always loved the interactions between wrestlers and interviewers, because it's totally different than just being a female wrestler. As an interviewer, you get to interact with everyone, male, female, wrestlers, non-wrestlers, managers, whatever. You get to interact with everyone. So I always enjoyed that part of it first. And then as time went on, they had me start to train in the ring. But being in the ring was never my favorite. They really wanted me to love it. But I enjoyed storytelling more than I did the actual physical wrestling part of it.
So you definitely understand the psychology of wrestling. It seems like you like that and appreciate that more than the actual, getting in the ropes and.
Oh yeah, I mean, and putting matches together, things like that, like that was always fun for me. I always enjoyed putting of matches together, and
she actually understands the psychology better than most wrestlers do, which is weird considering she doesn't like getting in there as much, but her mind for wrestling is better than most wrestlers, believe it or not.
I always say it's because I'm not as close to it. I think sometimes when you obsess over the sport of it, you get too close to it. You try and perfect the move so much that it takes away from it being as creative, possibly. But I mean, I definitely have a huge appreciation for the sport of wrestling and then the storytelling of wrestling coming together.
During this initial run, you took time off to be a part of the Celebrity Apprentice? How was that experience?
Whew. Okay, so I try to be very careful because of political things come into play, but I will have to say that making that much money for charity was amazing. I thankfully was on every single episode. I helped out with every single charity that was on the show because I was on every episode. We made over $1 million for the Holly Rod Foundation, which is for autism, which is absolutely incredible. The boardrooms were long, and they didn't need to be so long. I feel as if it was convoluted and overcomplicated in a lot of ways. Of course, television, it was a reality show.
Yeah.
So they needed to get those little moments. And I'm sure the length of time definitely came into play with how frustrated you got by the end of it. So, the political stuff aside, and I've talked about it to great length on CNN and a whole bunch of other news stations. The making of money for charity and doing it for a good cause was amazing.
So it was worth it from that standpoint.
From that standpoint, yes. But I also got a very unique view of the president, which I'm thankful for, because then I never had, I had my very own beliefs from the very beginning. And I think that that's great is, when people would tell me, oh, you don't believe that, or you don't know that. And I would say, yes, I worked with him for over a month. I know exactly the type of person he is. So
Sure.
in that standpoint, like I greatly appreciate it because I never had some fantasy about what that man truly is.
Yeah.
You two worked with Ring of Honor at the same time. Mike, you had a long run starting in 2008, and Maria, you joined in 2011. How is Ring of Honor different than other promotions?
Ring of Honor focuses on sport the most. They have their pure tournament, and it's pure wrestling. And that is, right now, that is the defining characteristic of Ring of Honor. And they always seem to go back to the sport.
Yeah, I feel like Ring of Honor always just, from the minute it started, it always just sets the precedent for where wrestling is going and what it's going to be. You go back to like 2002 and 2003 when it started, all those guys are now, and then past that, Ring of Honor is like taken over the wrestling world. If you look at WWE, the top guys, Ring of Honor guys. You look at AEW, the top guys, Ring of Honor guys. You look over at New Japan, the Americans that go over there, Ring of Honor guys. Like Impact. You look at Impact. It's they literally were the development system, if you think about it, for the rest of the wrestling world and going forward. And I think we've lost touch of that. And I think what Ring of Honor is doing is reminding people that that's what they are right now, by doing it differently, by doing pure wrestling, by focusing on the sport of professional wrestling while mixing in fun, interesting storylines, but not going over the top with the storylines, keeping it based on this is what it's a win or a loss. And this is why it matters. And this is what the guys and the girls are fighting for, which has always been what it's been about. And it's always been about innovation. And so I think we've forgotten that, but I'm also excited to see that Ring of Honor is bringing that back. And I think you're going to see 10 years from now, the crop of guys that are in Ring of Honor now will soon be taking over the wrestling world again.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many great wrestlers that have come from Ring of Honor, including yourselves. I mean, Daniel Bryan, Moxley. I mean, there's just such a long list.
It's everybody.
And
yeah.
That's where they're able to
AJ.
It's AJ.
It's crazy to me to think about all the guys like you guys were saying, AJ, Punk, Kevin Owens, the Young Bucks, Daniel Bryan, Samoa Joe. Like the list is literally just keeps going and keeps going. And it was funny when I first got to WWE, everyone asked me, they were like, "Oh, were you nervous?" And my reaction was no, because I knew like 90% of the locker room already, because we had all been in Ring of Honor together, or we had all been to Japan, or we'd all done.
I mean, then you look at like Mia was over there.
Yeah, and Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish, that the top guys down at NXT, Tommaso Ciampa
and Sarah Del Rey.
We're all Ring of Honor guys. And it's crazy to think that we've all now kind of just taken over, but I guess it was bound to happen eventually. Someone had to come in and take the spots of Edge and Christian and Cena and Taker and you know, like eventually they were going to need that new crop of guys, and Ring of Honor guys were just like, all right, that's our spot, we'll take it.
Yeah, you definitely got to keep that funnel full, because you know, Father Time catches up to everybody.
Absolutely, it sure does.
No, not me.
It does. No, it does.
Well, no, not you, of course, but you know, but as much as you want to see, you know, the Ric Flairs of the world be Ric Flair forever and the Undertaker's Undertaker, you know, they're gonna unfortunately have to, you know, move on, retire, and you got to keep the business going.
Yeah, and you got to fill it up with guys who know what they're doing, with guys who are like, if you look at someone like Kevin Owens, or you look at someone like Adam Cole or the Bucks, before they got to WWE, they already had a huge fan following. Yeah. So they were actually bringing fans to WWE. And so if you're trying to fill the roles of guys who have huge fan bases, take the guys that already have somewhat of a fan base, put them into the WWE universe, as they call it, and let that machine blow up their fan bases to now.
And Carl and Doc and the Bullet Club.
Carl and Doc and the Bullet Club. It's the list just continues to go on. And honestly, ever since we got released, I've been paying attention to this new crop of indie guys from all over the country, and they have that same vibe that the Bucks and the Kevin Owens and the Adam Coles and me and Maria and the Kingdom. It's that same vibe. So I'm curious to see. I think they're about to turn some heads. There's a bunch of guys and girls right now on the indies that are really killing it and doing their own thing. And I think they're the next crowd. Yeah.
And I think that they know social media so well, because they grew up in the era of social media. So like, it's interesting how they use social media better than our group did. And like, it's just going to keep going. It's, you know, it's what they grow up with now.
Yeah. But back in our day when we wanted to get out there, we used that MySpace.
Yeah. MySpace. Yes, it is. Or AOL Instant Messenger. That's how we got in touch with people.
Yeah. Unreal. All right, dude. Keep us rolling.
You both spent 2015 working together with New Japan Pro Wrestling. How was your time in Japan?
It was amazing. If you ever get to go or have the opportunity for any reason to go.
It's a beautiful country.
It's a beautiful country. It's a totally different kind of society. It's set up very different than our own, and it's just, the culture over there is so respectful, and just the way that they treated us was amazing. I mean, in WWE, of course, I shared a locker room with all the other women. When I was in Japan, I always had my own locker room. And they were so respectful of me. I had 2 runs of t-shirts when I was over there, and I was only over there for, I think, about 1.5 years, 2 years. And so like, you know, just the respect level was amazing for me. Now the fans, it's a different type of crowd. They
view it as a sport.
They view it as a sport. So everything you do, they are watching and they are quiet. And then when you stop is when they let their feelings be known. Whether they love it, they hate it, whatever. But like, while you are moving, you are not going to hear a peep from the crowd, because they are that respectful.
And I've kind of noticed that too, whenever you're able to catch, you know, some New Japan on Access or some of those other networks that might carry it. It's a different kind of fan base.
Yeah.
Just like professional baseball in Japan compared to here in the States.
Mhm.
Especially well, being from Chicago area, you probably know Wrigley Field. Us, Coors
Yeah.
Field,
You're just in Wrigley, you're just loud and drunk the whole time. It's
exactly. It's a total party. But in Japan, they're so dialed in and focused on it.
Mhm.
They might be loud and cheering with their little, clapper things for a baseball game, but they're so dialed in on every single pitch, hit, whatever it is.
They
They're very
appreciate it so much. They're so grateful for us being over there. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
I hope we get to go back at some point. But we'll see with crazy COVID time.
They also have a different style of professional wrestling
Yes.
too, which I love. It's I didn't appreciate it as much when I was a younger wrestler. Now it's like my favorite type of professional wrestling to watch. I watch all the New Japan and Noah and All Japan. Like I just admire the athleticism in the sport that they put into it. And I admire the work ethic that those guys have and the way they just the way they carry themselves. It's just it's a very interesting, respectful culture, and I love it. Like if you guys ever get the chance, I don't know if you've ever been, but if you ever get, it's a wonderful place to visit.
Yeah, we want to take the babies.
It's a beautiful place, but it's also it's just a wonderful place. Like it's so different than here that you just go and you just get engulfed by the whole thing. It's really a cool experience.
And it seems like they're not afraid to make American stars within those promotions either.
No, they love it. Yeah.
I mean, you look at the success. I mean, granted, Finn Balor is not American, but him, AJ, Gallows, Anderson, who's been on with us to talk about their experience.
Yeah.
The Young Bucks. I mean, there's, Kenny Omega. There's just been so many that have just prospered there. And that's when you kind of talk about just that following, people that have that following in Japan coming back, whether it's Impact, whether it's, AEW, Ring of Honor, there's those fans that are so locked in.
Yeah, we always used to get so frustrated with WWE because every time there was a Japan tour, they never invited us to go. And it's like,
we were like, please, we had a fan base over there. Please.
We're going to drop.
Yeah.
It's such a, like, it was very strange to us because it's like we came off these huge runs in Japan and they didn't want us. WWE was like, no, we're good.
There's also a sense as a wrestler too. And I can't speak for a lot of guys, but talking to them, it gives you credibility after you have worked for Japan.
Yeah.
It's a goal that many wrestlers try to achieve, but not many get to. So I feel incredibly blessed that I had the opportunity, and I hope I get the opportunity again. But it gives you like this instant sense of credibility. Like when you're a sports player, a professional sports player, and you win the championship or the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals, you instantly get that credibility of like, all right, you're a champ. There's that feeling with Japan that when you've gotten to go over there and do a tour over there and continuously work over there, you get this instant feeling of credibility that people feel and wrestling fans feel, that they're like, all right, he's done Japan. He's the real deal. He's legit. He's not somebody to mess with, which is always really cool.
Yeah. And even Rocky Romero mentioned it, wrestling at the Tokyo Dome, that is like the mecca worldwide of professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. That's everybody. It's like you think about it and it's like, you want to either WrestleMania or you want Tokyo Dome or you want both, or it's like those are two milestones in a wrestling career that it seems like every guy tries to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
After Japan, you both signed with TNA, now Impact Wrestling. What were some of your memorable moments during those couple of years?
The wedding.
The wedding was one of my favorite times. That was so much fun. The wedding between Allie and Braxton. For me, I loved everything I did with EC3. We had never wrestled each other. We hadn't even met before I even got to Impact. and we just had an instant chemistry. And not only the matches, but some of the backstage stuff we got to do together where he was like my boss and in charge of me and making me clean toilet. Like we had such a hard time getting through those things because we were laughing, because we just enjoyed it. And we just, I mean, I can't speak for him, but I enjoyed the hell out of working with him and just being, he's so talented, but he's also so incredibly funny. And I don't know if people realize how funny he is. And we just had a blast. He's a phenomenal wrestler. He's an even better promo. And so just being able to just go back and forth with him on the microphone, then getting in the ring, then doing backstage segments. I just, besides the wedding, that was the best time I had.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the wedding and the whole build up to that, and just, and then leaving there and then watching as Mia gets signed and as Chelsea gets signed and as Allie goes over, you know, I just feel like that was just a moment in time that just so many people came into their own. So for me, yes, my time there was amazing. And the wedding is probably one of my favorite things I've ever done in wrestling. But then watching these girls thrive after is just incredible. And I'm waiting on a couple more to see where they end up getting signed, but I have a good feeling about them as well.
Beautiful.
Then you two signed with WWE as a married couple expecting a baby. Talk about your second run in WWE, and Mike, your first WWE run.
So when we first got signed, we actually we were not expecting at the time. So when we signed, we actually signed right around WrestleMania. So we were supposed to either show up on WrestleMania or the night after WrestleMania, but they sat us. So we sat at home for 4 months after they signed us. And one of the main reasons we had signed with them originally was because we thought we were going to start right away, because we were coming off of this great run in Impact. And so we were like, all right, let's, just keep steamrolling and making this, having a kind of a snowball effect. But they sat us. And so we knew we had wanted a family, but we weren't being blessed with that at the time. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, as we're getting called up, we also discovered that we were expecting. So we were super happy. Maurice and Miz actually announced the week we were going to announce. So it was just this weird experience of oh my gosh, did they just announce that they were pregnant? Because we had known we were pregnant. We were going to tell WWE the very next day. And so we were like, all right, well, this is going to be interesting. And so then we told them, and I had already been approved by my doctor to stay on the road until 26 weeks. And they told me, no, we're going to just have you go home. Okay, fine. So it was kind of strange for me because I was just so, I could do whatever I wanted during that first pregnancy. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll stay home, but I'd really like to work, and my limbs still function just fine. So yeah, it was an interesting experience for me. Yeah.
I mean, so as for me, I wish it could have been better. I really do. Like I said earlier, from the time I was 12, I wanted to be a WWE wrestler. It was WWE. It was nowhere else. I had complete and utter tunnel vision. It was just WWE. That was my goal. That was my main focus. So for me, it was disappointing the way the run went. I wish it could have been better. But on the flip side, I learned a lot and I grew as a human. And I'm incredibly thankful for my run there, because it opened my eyes to what I actually want out of wrestling. My tunnel vision went away, and I realized that WWE is a good fit for some people. It's just not a good fit for me. I shouldn't say that. It's not a good fit for me at this moment. at that moment for what I was trying to accomplish, what I wanted to do.
You just wanted more.
I wanted more. I wanted to be more of a wrestler. I had just gotten clean and sober. I was motivated. I was excited. I felt like some chains had been released. I had broke free from the chains. And unfortunately, at that moment, WWE wasn't the type of company that was going to offer me those opportunities. So it just wasn't a good fit. We were constantly going to butt heads for what I wanted and for what they wanted. It's a great fit for some people. Some people go there. I've had guys reach out to me who just got signed and they're like, you're always honest. What do you think I should do? And my reaction is go there, because everyone's experience there is different. And I've never told anyone, oh, well, I had a terrible time, so that means you're going to have we're all different.
I mean, my first
run there, you loved.
Yeah, I was one of the favorites. So like I was on every show. I think I only, for the 5.5 years I was there, I don't know if I was not on Raw or SmackDown more than like 5 times, unless I was away doing like some other thing like Celebrity Apprentice or whatever else. I was on,
or outreach or something like that for the.
Yeah, I mean, I was on every single week. I had great storylines. I worked with everybody. I got to work with Rock and Stone Cold, and I announced for Taker when we were overseas, and I worked with Dolph Ziggler. I managed him. I managed Santino. I worked with Jeff Hardy. I was main eventing with John Cena. And with Edge. And so I did all of that the first run. And then this second run, it's almost like they brought us in to shelf us. And then they were like, oh, we'll try and use them here and there. And
that's not what we wanted.
At that point in my career, I wasn't really about doing that. But at the same time, I was willing to just let them pay me. Mike, on the other hand, was kind of like, no, I'm still, and I'm 3 years older than Mike. So like Mike has still got lots more time in this industry, where I'm starting to make the transition of, instead of being always just on camera, to also be booking other things and to be writing for other people, which I had done a little bit when I was in Impact. And I wrote all my promos and stuff when I was in Ring of Honor. So like, for me, I had already been making that transition. I think it's pretty widely known that Heyman is my mentor. So like, that's just the way I was going anyways in my career. So I was like, yeah, you want to pay me for 5 years? Cool. That's fine. But again, they only kept us on for like 8 months of that contract. So,
which, I mean, to me, from the consumer, from a fan watching it and knowing, obviously your track record and Mike on the indies and, Ring of Honor and, TNA at the time, like you said, having that following come in like, hey, Maria's back. Mike, after all these years on the independents and doing damage there, I mean, he's finally at WWE. This is going to be exciting. And, like your buddy EC3, they didn't use them. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were so many wasted talents that get signed for WWE, like Maria, you mentioned, just to be shelved so nobody else uses them.
Yeah, I mean, so Impact was getting really good ratings by the end there. And we had just started like a new contract with a different company, or a different, like, I guess it would be like father company that was taking over the production, or new production company had just taken over Impact. And so like production quality, all that stuff was getting better and better. And then like the ratings off of those last few months that we were there, the Hardys were there, Drew was there, EY, EC3, like Bobby Roode, all of them were there. Then you had Allie and Chelsea and Mia and Allison Kay. And so, and Gail Kim, of course, like, so we were all there, and we were making an impact in the wrestling industry, literally. Right. So I feel as if they looked at that as, oh my gosh, we need to go and grab all these talents. So they stopped doing so well. And that's, what happened for a little while. But then, of course, like now you have this incredible women's division over at Impact. And now you've got, Carl and Doc back over there. And like, it's crazy how even though WWE thinks you can scoop up these talent, then all of a sudden they just release everybody and expect everybody to, I don't know, like, did he think we were going to fall off the face of the earth? Like, we still have a desire to work and be successful. And so many of us, we went back to our roots. We went back to Ring of Honor, and Carl and Doc are now, doing stuff both on Impact and also at AEW. So like, we didn't fall off the planet. And we are, and now like, Carl and Doc and what they're doing with AEW is one of the most talked about things that is
in all of pro wrestling.
In pro wrestling. So it's almost like they created more competition, because one of the worst things or best things you could do to people like us and people like Carl and Doc is to tell us no.
Yeah.
No, you don't want us? Okay. All right. I see you. And I will raise you that I don't like you by about 50 and find someplace better and make someplace better.
The worst thing WWE ever did was right before they fired me, they told me they think I'm a good hand and you're a decent wrestler at best. And I went, okay, I'll show you. That's it. And that's when you fire people that are motivated and hungry, that's what you get, that look at what Deanna's doing over at Impact, and look at what EC3's making a name. He had a name, but he's drawing interest without even really being affiliated with a company. Mm-hmm. He's just doing it through his social media and drawing people in that way. Like, you cannot release motivated, hungry, creative people and then be surprised when they start to do things and shock the wrestling world, which is what a lot of us are doing, which I think it's cool to watch. I'm having a blast watching all these guys that got fired and told that, oh, well, you'll never be a star in WWE. Well, you don't need to be a star in WWE to be a star. And it's fun to watch. And again, some guys will go to WWE and be stars, and that's awesome. And I hope any of my friends that sign there become bajillionaires. When one of my buddies called me and said, what should I do? I said, go become a millionaire. I really want you to. Please do. But for the rest of us, we're going to go do it our way. And I think that's awesome to watch.
Yeah, have an opportunity, make your money, be able to support your family, and then go back to your passion.
Yeah,
whether
exactly.
It's, succeed in WWE, or if it's AEW, TNA, Impact, Ring of Honor, or, go back to Japan. I mean, there's just so many options outside of WWE, and it's so great to see, and it's great to see the competition back like it used to be, because being a young kid, and unfortunately Jack hasn't got to experience this part of it, where there is that competition. Yeah. High school, we had the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah.
And those were the biggest parties on Monday night. But then even before that, you had somebody from NWA or AEW or AWA coming over to WWF, somebody from WWF going elsewhere,
Yeah.
So,
competition is the best thing for pro wrestling, not only for the fans, but for us wrestlers, because when I started in 2001, there was essentially really only one company to work for if you wanted to be successful in wrestling. Now, you don't have to go to WWE to be successful. You just don't. It's an avenue of many that you can go to
it also
be
gives
successful.
you creative freedom, because like when I was in WWE the first time and we had the Divas division, we were watching what the Knockouts were doing in Impact, and we were very jealous. And it pushed us even more to push the WWE management to give us more time.
Now both of you are back in Ring of Honor, where Mike helped your former Kingdom partner Matt Taven fight off Vinny Marseglia and Bateman. How did it feel to make that kind of return?
It's one of my favorite moments I've had in wrestling. Okay.
Sorry, I'm hearing some noises downstairs.
I'll take over for a second while I answer this question. Kids, man. it was genuinely one of my most favorite moments in wrestling. It's one of those things where Matt is legitimately my best friend in real life. So when I left Ring of Honor 5 years ago, we always joked that we had been planning this return for 5 years because we knew eventually we were all going to come back together. And then just that moment at that time where, like, having felt after getting released and being in the pandemic and being very confused about where I wanted to go and being very angry at the time because I felt very bitter and angry about getting released and I wasn't happy about it. But it was like a release, and it was a cleansing, and like all these hokey things and hippie things that you hear about. But it really was. It felt good, and it was just what I needed, and it reminded me of what I love about pro wrestling. It made me find my love for pro wrestling again, and it reminded me that I love being a part of Ring of Honor, and I want to be a part, and I appreciate. I think sometimes when you're younger and you're always constantly, you're always constantly reaching for that next thing and trying to be better and trying to get to that next level. You never really stop, and you're never really present in the moment to think like, oh wow, I really have it good here, and you don't really appreciate the things you have. But I'm in a place now in my life where I appreciate and I'm present, and just getting to be this person in Ring of Honor is really cool for me. Getting to be this clean, sober Mike Bennett, but also this very appreciative Mike Bennett and this present Mike Bennett. It's fun for me because I feel like I have the opportunity to do a lot of cool things that I'm excited about with this mentality.
What do you two do in your free time now?
What free time? I got 2 little ones.
It doesn't exist.
We try and actually go away one night a month or every 2 months, which is incredibly difficult with 2 tiny ones. You have to have a babysitter and then also an extra person because they're so small. So usually my mom and then our nanny comes over. So when we do get that opportunity, we will watch a season of a show. So the last time, not this past time, but the time before when we had like a night away, we watched the entire season of the morning show, which was amazing. But yeah, that's pretty much all we do during our free time, which is like what I think everybody is doing in their free time right now because no one can go anywhere. So yeah,
we have hobbies that we like to do.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big history nerd. I love history, American history. I'll watch any documentary, read any book, listen to any podcast about it. I'm a big political nerd. I love talking about, the Constitution. Like I grew up on that stuff. That's what my dad was into. And so I'm a huge nerd when it comes to history. I'm a huge sports nerd, diehard New England Patriots fan, diehard Tom Brady fan. So these are the things I do when I do get a moment to myself when the kids go to sleep. I'm obsessed with The Office. She hates The Office, but I love it.
Oh, I love that show.
Okay, thank you. See, I love The Office. I watch it all the time.
So annoying.
Best show ever.
I have a second business. I do an event management. I have an event management business, but right now during COVID, we haven't really had it open.
You're not really hopping.
There's no events.
No events.
So birthday parties are a big thing right now in my house because I can decorate like it is some giant event. But yeah, so I do a lot of event management, wedding planning. I am a florist. So when I guess you would say it's my free time, but really it's a second job.
Yeah. That's kind of how it is here. You know what? Been working from home since March. I'm in advertising, which you can do stuff via Zoom, emails, phone calls. But, just having our producer out on location shooting a commercial. Oh, that's a battle going through all the hoops and regulations.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All restrictions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully here in Colorado, we're up to a point where things are getting better. We're considered blue, so restaurants can operate at 50% in Pueblos. So we're making progress. So out of the pandemic, this podcast got started.
Oh, cool.
This is exactly
a silver lining in everything.
It was.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely. All right, Jack, you got a few more and we'll close her out, buddy.
Besides each other, who was your favorite wrestlers?
So I loved Lita. I thought she was just such a strong female. And The Rock, for sure.
For me, when I was growing up, it was always
you're
gonna go yell at the dogs.
I am. Yep.
It was always it was Stone Cold Steve Austin. That was my guy growing up, and Mick Foley. When I became a wrestler, Edge became my favorite, just because I think he does everything well. And then I'm a big Kobashi fan from Noah. I love watching him. I've turned into like a Japanese pro wrestling nerd too. Like I love Kenta and Kobashi and all the New Japan. Like those are my guys that I watch now. It's weird. I grew up WWE, and now at 35, I'm like, no, Japanese wrestling is my style. So it's going to be interesting to see where my career goes now with all these mixed of emotions of wrestling styles that I love.
Well, yeah, I mean, but being in the business for as long as you have, you're studying, other wrestlers, other styles, other, promotions, and there's just, it's a bigger world out there than WWE.
Yeah, and that's the cool part for me right now, and that's the part that I'm really trying to embrace. Is like, I always feel like the best wrestlers always reinvent themselves. That's why Chris Jericho is 50 and still people pay to see him, because he's constantly reinventing himself as something new. And so that's been my mindset, is like, I'm looking at my career and looking at the things I've done and the way I've wrestled, and then saying, what's the best way for me to reinvent myself now? And while doing that, I completely fell in love with Japanese wrestling. So like, that's kind of where my mind is going. That's where my heart is going. And I'm going to follow that and kind of see where it takes me. And like you said, there's so many avenues right now for wrestling that it's just, to me, there's no better time to be in wrestling than there is right now. Once we can get fans back, I think there's going to be another huge boom in professional wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. We are looking very forward to actual live sports and wrestling, and just being able to pack those arenas and
I can't wait.
Watch you all entertain us, and just, have some happiness once again when it comes to outside world, and, get through this COVID crap. So
please, can we?
Well, hey, we want to thank you once again for taking the time to connect with us here on the Paradox of Sports. I know you're busy, so it's greatly appreciated. Mike Bennett, Maria Kanellis, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And you enjoy the rest of your evening. Happy Valentine's Day, and have fun with the kiddos.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having us. We really appreciate it. Bye, guys.